Welcome to Jersey Reads the Classics, an audiobook podcast delving into the finest works of our literary masters. Unfortunately, it's read by this woman.
What the hell? Who cares? Let's go on an adventure.
Well, hello, and welcome back to Jersey Reads the Classics with me, your host, Rosa DeCambia. It's so nice to have you back where you belong. So without any further ado, my friends, let's get back to reading The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by l.Frank. And now we're reading Chapter 15, The Discovery of Oz the Terrible. The four travelers walked up to the great gate of Emerald City and rang the bell. After ringing several times, it was opened by the same guardian of the gates they had met before. "What? Are you back again?" he asked in surprise. "Do you not see us?" answered the Scarecrow. "Ooh, Scarecrow getting nice and sassy. Good for him. Screw you, guardian of the gate. He didn't expect them to come back, that's why. But I thought you had gone to visit the Wicked Witch of the West." "We did visit her," said the Scarecrow. "And she let you go again?" asked the man in wonder. "She could not help it, for she is melted," explained the Scarecrow. "Melted? Well, that is good news indeed," said the man. "Who melted her?" "Who did? That little girl, Dorothy." "It was Dorothy," said the lion gravely. "Good gracious," exclaimed the man, and he bowed very low indeed before her. See, they're all giving Dorothy some major props here. Look at Dorothy. Who's better than Dorothy? I don't think anybody is. Then he led them into his little room and locked the spectacles from the great box on all their eyes. Again with the fucking spectacles, please. Just as he had done before. Afterward, they passed on through the gate into the Emerald City. When the people heard from the guardian at the gates that Dorothy had melted the Wicked Witch of the West, they all gathered around the travelers and followed them in a great crowd to the Palace of Oz. It's like they have their own entourage now. Hello. Where were they before when they were on their trip to the Wicked Witch of the West? Don't you love it? People love you when you're high, but when you're low, no one knows you. You know what I'm saying? Except your tribe. But anyway, we'll move on. The soldier with the green whiskers was still on guard before the door, but he let them in at once, and they were again met by the beautiful green girl, who showed each of them to their old rooms at once, so that they might rest until the great Oz was ready to receive them. He better not wait too long, okay? They did what he asked them to do, so it's time, Mr. Wizard, okay? It's time. The soldier had the news carried straight to Oz that Dorothy and the other travelers had come back again after destroying the Wicked Witch, but Oz made no reply. They thought the great wizard would send for them at once, but he did not. They had no word from him the next day, not the next, nor the next. How rude. Talk about avoidance. The waiting was tiresome and wearing, and at last they grew vexed that Oz should treat them in such poor a fashion after sending them to undergo hardships and slavery. Ain't that the friggin' truth, okay? So the Scarecrow at last asked the green girl to take another message to Oz, saying if he did not let them in to see him at once, they would call the winged monkeys to help them and find out whether he kept his promises or not. Look at that. The Scarecrow knows how to do some emotional blackmail here. I love it. That's right, because Dorothy's got, 2 more wishes with the winged monkeys. Do you believe this shit? Do you believe this Oz bullshit? Let me tell you something. We all know the great Oz. He is the terrible. He sucks. Anyway, when the wizard was given this message, he was so frightened that he sent word for them to come to the throne room at 4 minutes after 9 o'clock in the next morning. Why 4 minutes after 9? I don't know. I guess he has to show he's in the power position. He had once met the winged monkeys in the land of the West, and he did not wish to meet them again. The 4 travelers passed a sleepless night, each thinking of the gift Oz had promised to bestow on him. Dorothy fell asleep only once, and then she dreamed she was in Kansas, where Aunt Em was telling her how glad she was to have a little girl home again. Promptly at 9 o'clock the next morning, the green-whiskered soldier came to them, and 4 minutes later, they all went into the throne room of the great Oz. Of course, each one of them expected to see the wizard in the shape he had taken before, and all were greatly surprised when they looked about and saw no one at all in the room. They kept close to the door and closer to one another, for the stillness of the empty room was more dreadful than any of the forms they had seen Oz take. Presently, they heard a solemn voice that seemed to come from somewhere near the top of the great dome, and it said, "I am Oz, the great and terrible. Why do you seek me?" They looked again at every part of the room, and then, seeing no one, Dorothy asked, "Where are you?" How rude. He doesn't even greet them. They go and do this horrible deed, kill this witch. We don't know how long they've been gone. They never know. They don't tell us how many days have passed. And then he has no kindness to even show a head, something, even the pretty lady. Show something. "I am everywhere," answered the voice. "But to the eyes of common mortals, I am invisible. I will now seat myself upon my throne, that you may converse with me." Indeed, the voice seemed just then to come straight from the throne itself, so they walked toward it and stood in a row while Dorothy said, "We have come here to claim our promise, O Oz." "What promise?" asked Oz. How quickly they forget, right? He's having a senior moment. "You promised to send me back to Kansas when the Wicked Witch was destroyed," said the girl. "And you promised to give me brains," said the Scarecrow. "And you promised to give me a heart," said the Tin Woodman. "And you promised to give me courage," said the Cowardly Lion. "Is the Wicked Witch really destroyed?" asked the voice, and Dorothy thought it trembled a little. "Yes," she answered. "I melted her with a bucket of water." "Shut that bitch ass down." "That's right. I did it. You asked it. I did it. Now pay up." "Dear me," said the voice. "How sudden. Well, come to me tomorrow, for I must have time to think it over." "You've had plenty of time already," said the Tin Woodman angrily. "We shan't wait a day longer," said the Scarecrow. "You must keep your promises to us," exclaimed Dorothy. The lion thought it might be as well to frighten the wizard, so he gave a large, loud roar, which was so fierce and dreadful that Toto jumped away from him in alarm and tipped over the screen that stood in a corner. As it fell with a crash, they looked that way, and the next moment all of them were filled with wonder, for they saw, standing in just the spot the screen had hidden, a little old man with a bald head and a wrinkled face, who seemed to be as much surprised as they were. The Tin Woodman, raising his axe, rushed toward the little man and cried out, "Who are you?" "I am Oz, the great and terrible," said the little man in a trembling voice. "But do not strike me. Please don't, and I'll do anything you want me to." This is the moment of truth. You see, my friends? Oz is a sham. A little old man behind a screen, scaring the shit out of people, bidding them to do things they don't want to do, and yet he's nothing. Our friends looked at him in surprise and dismay. "I thought Oz was a great head," said Dorothy. "And I thought Oz was a lovely lady," said the Scarecrow. "And I thought Oz was a terrible beast," said the Tin Woodman. "And I thought Oz was a ball of fire," exclaimed the Lion. "No, you are all wrong," said the little man meekly. "I have been making believe." "Making believe?" cried Dorothy. "Are you not a great wizard?" "Hush, my dear," he said. "Don't speak so loud, or you will be overheard and I should be ruined. I'm supposed to be a great wizard." "And aren't you?" she asked. "Not a bit of it, my dear. I'm just a common man." "You're more than that," said the Scarecrow in a grieved tone. "You're a humbug." "Exactly so," declared the little man, rubbing his hands together as if it pleased him. "I am a humbug." "But this is terrible," said the Tin Woodman. "How shall I ever get my heart?" Once again, all this shit's going down, and the Tin Woodman is really upset about his heart. Now listen, I understand. He's got his focus, but at this moment, I would kind of want to know a little bit more about this little old man and why he's been pulling a sham-a-lock on everybody. Really, I just want to know that. That's all I'm saying. "Or I my courage?" asked the Lion. "Or I my brains?" wailed the Scarecrow, wiping the tears from his eyes with his coat sleeve. "My dear friends," said Oz, "I pray you not to speak of these little things. Think of me and the terrible trouble I'm in at being found out. Oh, do you love how he flipped that switch? Think of me as if they owe him something. Can you believe this schmuck? Not even to be like, I'm so sorry I deceived you. No, don't worry about the stuff you need. I'm in trouble here. They don't owe you nothing, okay? They did what you wanted them to do. Can you believe the gall of this little man? Really, really, he is a common man because he's got some pair of nuts. Doesn't anyone else know you're a humbug? Asked Dorothy. No one knows it but you four and myself, replied Oz. I have fooled everyone so long that I thought I should never be found out. It was a great mistake my ever letting you into the throne room. Usually, I will not even see my subjects, and so they believe I am something terrible. But I don't understand, said Dorothy in bewilderment. How was it that you appeared to me as a great head? That was one of my tricks, answered Oz. Step this way, please, and I will tell you all about it. Okay, good. We're going to get some backstory on why Oz is such a schmuck and a shamalok. He led the way to a small chamber in the rear of the throne room, and they all followed him. He pointed to one corner in which lay the great head, made out of many thicknesses of paper and with a carefully painted face. This I hung from the ceiling by a wire, said Oz. I stood behind the screen and pulled a thread to make the eyes move and the mouth open. But how about the voice? She inquired. Oh, I'm a ventriloquist, said the little man. I can throw the sound of my voice wherever I wish so that you thought it was coming out of the head. Here are the other things I used to deceive you. Look at him now. He's just showing off everything. He showed the scarecrow the dress and the mask he had worn when he seemed to be the lovely lady. And the Tin Woodman saw that this terrible beast was nothing but a lot of skins sewn together with slats to keep their sides out. As for the ball of fire, the false wizard had hung that also from the ceiling. It was really a ball of cotton, but when oil was poured upon it, the ball burns fiercely. Really, said the scarecrow. You ought to be ashamed of yourself for being such a humbug. I am. I certainly am, answered the little man sorrowfully. But it was the only thing I could do. Sit down, please. There are plenty of chairs, and I will tell you my story. Okay, so now we're going to hear the backstory of how Oz came to be Oz. But this is the thing. Isn't it interesting that the things he's showing them now probably look so fake and ridiculous? But in the moment, when they wanted to believe or thought that they believed he was the truth and he was these things, they really saw these things as real. So let's hopefully touch on that in the woo-woo. Like when our eyes or our mind tells us that something is real, and we change our lens, right? What we see so we can fit it into our narrative. Ooh, look at those deep thoughts. Deep thoughts with Rosie DeCandia. Ooh. Okay. So, they sat down and listened while he told the following tale. I was born in Omaha. Why, that isn't very far from Kansas, cried Dorothy. No, but it's farther from here, he said, shaking his head at her sadly. When I grew up, I became a ventriloquist, and at that, I was very well trained by a great master. I can imitate any kind of a bird or beast. Here he mewed, so like a kitten that Toto pricked up his ears and looked everywhere to see where she was. After a time, continued Oz, I tired of that and became a balloonist. What is that? Asked Dorothy. A man who goes up in a balloon on circus day as to draw a crowd of people together and get them to pay to see the circus, he explained. Oh, she said, I know. Well, one day I went up in a balloon and the ropes got twisted so that I couldn't come down again. It went way up above the clouds, so far that a current of air struck it and carried it many miles away. For a day and a night I traveled through the air, and on the morning of the second day I awoke and found the balloon floating over a strange and beautiful country. Hello, Oz. It came down gradually, and I was not hurt a bit, but I found myself in the midst of a strange people who, seeing me come from the clouds, thought I was a great wizard. That tells you the story, so he's not going to give that gig up. Of course, I let them think so, because they were afraid of me and promised to do anything I wished them to. So the power went to his head already. You believe that? Not even to be like, I'm lost. Can you help me get to Omaha? Just to amuse myself and keep the good people busy, I ordered them to build this city and my palace, and they did it all willingly and well. wow, this guy is like a like a snake oilsman salesman. Then I thought, as the country was so green and beautiful, I would call it the Emerald City. And to make the name fit better, I put green spectacles on all the people so that everything they saw was green. We knew that. But isn't everything here green? Asked Dorothy. No more than in any other city, replied Oz. But when you wear green spectacles, why, of course, everything you see looks green to you. Hello. The Emerald City was built a great many years ago, for I was a young man when the balloon brought me here, and I am a very old man now. But my people have worn green glasses on their eyes so long that most of them think it really is an Emerald City. And it is a beautiful place, abounding in jewels and precious metals and every good thing that is needed to make one happy. I have been good to the people, and they like me, but ever since this palace was built, I have shut myself up and would not see any of them. You see, so he had these people do all this crap. He's lied to them under the guise that he's a wizard, and now he's become a prisoner of his own lie. You see, because if he had told the truth from the first day, he wouldn't be hung up in a friggin' palace. I think he could have been just a nice man who could have just lived amongst them, and they'd have been like, sure, just get a job here. Maybe he could have done ventriloquy or freaking ballooning for them. I don't know. Really, maybe he should do the ballooning where he makes the animals out of the little balloons. All right. One of my greatest fears was the witches. For while I had no magical powers at all, I soon found out that the witches were really able to do wonderful things. There were 4 of them in this country, and they ruled the people who live in the north and the south and the east and the west. Fortunately, witches of the north and the south were good, and I knew they would do me no harm. But the witches of the east and west were terribly wicked, and had they not thought I was more powerful than they themselves, they surely would have destroyed me. Okay, I get that now. I get it. All right, I'll give him the wizard thing. As it was, I lived in deadly fear of them for many years. So you can imagine how pleased I was when I heard your house had fallen on the Wicked Witch of the East. When you came to me, I was willing to promise anything if you would only do away with the other witch. But now that you have melted her, I am ashamed to say that I cannot keep my promises. Bad form. As Captain Hook would say, bad form, Oz, bad form. I think you are a very bad man, said Dorothy. Oh, no, my dear. I'm really a very good man, but I'm a very bad wizard. I must admit it. That is pretty funny. Can't you give me brains? Asked the Scarecrow. You don't need them. You are learning something every day. A baby has brains, but it doesn't know much. Experience is the only thing that brings knowledge, and the longer you are on the earth, the more experience you are sure to get. And that may all be true, said the Scarecrow, but I shall be very unhappy unless you give me brains. The false wizard looked at him carefully. Well, he said with a sigh, I'm not much of a magician, as I said, but if you will come to me tomorrow morning, I will stuff your head with brains. I cannot tell you how to use them, however. You must find that out for yourself. Okay. Oh, thank you, cried the Scarecrow. I'll find a way to use them, never fear. But how about my courage? Asked the Lion anxiously. You have plenty of courage, I'm sure, answered Oz. All you need is confidence in yourself. He's becoming a good therapist at this moment because it's his years of being on the earth. There is no living thing that is not afraid when it faces danger. The true courage is in facing danger when you are afraid, and that kind of courage you have in plenty. Perhaps I have, but I'm scared just the same, said the Lion. I should really be very unhappy unless you give me the sort of courage that makes one forget he is afraid. Very well. I will give you that sort of courage tomorrow, replied Oz. How about my heart? Asked the Tin Woodman. Why, as for that, answered Oz, I think you are wrong to want a heart. It makes most people unhappy. If you only knew it, you are in luck not to have a heart. That must be a matter of opinion, said the Tin Woodman. For my part, I will bear all the unhappiness without a murmur if you will give me the heart. Very well, answered Oz meekly. Come to me tomorrow, and you shall have a heart. I have played wizard for so many years that I may as well continue the part a little longer. And now, said Dorothy, how am I to get back to Kansas? We shall have to think about that, replied the little man. Give me 2 or 3 days to consider the matter, and I'll try to find a way to carry you over the desert. In the meantime, you shall all be treated as my guests, and while you live in the palace, my people will wait upon you and obey your slightest wish. There is only one thing I ask in return for my help. Here he goes again, asking for more shit. He wants the witch dead. He's dead. She's dead. And now he can't promise. He can't give him the promises. And now he's still asking for shit, and he hasn't fulfilled on any of his deal. But let's see what it is. There is only one thing I ask in return for my help, such as it is. Okay, he put that in there. You must keep my secret and tell no one I am a humbug. They agreed to say nothing of what they had learned and went back to their rooms in high spirits. Even Dorothy had hoped that the great and terrible humbug, as she called him, would find a way to send her back to Kansas, and if he did, she was willing to forgive him everything. Well, I like the fact that she'll forgive him everything as long as he'll get it back to freaking Kansas. Well, we figured it out. We all know now, I think we all knew that Oz was a great sham. And like most people that come into town and tell you they can do this for you and do that. I'm not saying everybody, but I love this because it really tells me that in life, right, when you want to believe in something, you really can make it believable. And I think it's funny how they believe so much, like Big Head and everything, because they walked in thinking he was this great and terrible Oz. He kept getting told, and everybody was like, we've never seen him, we've never seen him. And then here, all his tricks are being revealed, and you're like, you didn't know it was a guy in a mask? You couldn't tell it was a mask and a dress? But yet, because they believed that their narrative, this bullshit they had been told, because the people don't know it's a bullshit story, that they walked in, they really believed what they saw. So we've talked about this before, about changing the lens in your eyes, right? The perspective. And what's interesting, it's like even today, what's happening during the pandemic with our leadership and what have you, you know, people come into town and they make promises and tell you they're going to do all this wonderful thing, and they reveal what they want to reveal, right? It's like smoke and mirrors. And people, not saying everybody does, because if you're watching this, maybe you didn't believe the crap, but people want to believe what they want to believe, so they put so much belief in something, they see what they think is the truth, and it's not. And I'm just going to encourage you to think about the times in your life, or if you're still doing this, if there's a person or some situation you're in that you're really not seeing the truth of who they are, or the truth of who you are, or the truth of the situation, because you've told yourself a specific narrative. And you're saying that this is the way it is, yet it really isn't. So what I think it's a good lesson for all of us is to take ourselves out of the narrative and to sit there and look at situations, relationships, and you know, our relationships with people. And I'm not talking about every relationship, but like when you're in a situation that is troubling you, or a certain relationship with, whether it's an intimate one or a personal one or a friend one or a family one or a work one, you sit there and you get clear with yourself and you take yourself out of the story and you look at it and you say, okay, if I wasn't part of this narrative, can I step away from this and actually see with clear eyes, without the tale I've told myself, what is going on here? Because when we can do that in a situation, we can then hold the other person accountable for whatever is going wrong in the situation, if they're part of it, or hold yourself accountable, or hold each other accountable, meaning you can say, hey, wait a second, I'm blaming this person, but at the end, I'm also a party to this, or vice versa, or we're both really in this together. And I think it's a great way to do that, especially when you're in a troubled situation. You know how we like to turn to our friends to say, I need some advice. And sometimes you just want your friend to back you up. So you have those friends, and I've done it too, and your friends do it sometimes, where it's like, you know, you're like, well, I'm going to, you know, all right, I'll back you up. But I'm a Libra, so a lot of us like to play devil's advocate and say, well, wait a second, let's look at it from the other person's perspective. And that's something we can do for ourselves. So I think it's really important for us to pay attention when we're in a situation that we feel is not serving us or what have you, what's going on, to change the narrative by stepping out of it and changing the lens from how you see it. And that is not an easy thing to do, but I think with more time and experience, you will gain that. And I have to say, what I love about this is that the little old man, when he talks about brains, right, he says with experience, and he makes a really good, valid point. You know, it's like all of us. with life, I think all of us become so hard on ourselves and thinking we're supposed to know it even at 50 years old, because I'm 50. I'm throwing out 50 because I'm 50. But that's not the point. The journey of life is each and every day is an opportunity for you to learn. And we've talked about this too, because everything I'm saying, I know it's a repeat, but it's not, because you'll hear it and you'll understand it and get it when you're ready to understand it. So whether you get it now or you got it 6 episodes ago, it doesn't make a difference. You might be hearing it again because you're facing another situation. So our journey never ends. And what that means is each day we wake up and something else may happen. It may not be dramatic, and nothing needs to be dramatic unless we claim it drama. But we have the opportunity to grow from it. And I think with, becoming conscious and awakened and stepping outside of situations, that's how we have more experience. I mean, the beauty about getting older, which I tell so many of my young friends, is you gain so much knowledge and wisdom that you can then impart on younger people. Not that young people aren't old souls and aren't intelligent and experienced either, because there are a lot of young people that are very street smart. I mean, and I'm not talking about book smart, have a lot of life experience, and they can teach me a few things or two. But it's more about the fact that you've learned how to look at things from different perspectives. And that's what I think is interesting about the old man, right? He says, brains are from experience. The heart, he made a pretty interesting point. It's like, you'll only just be unhappy because you can have a broken heart. But he knows at the end of the day, the Tin Man already has the heart. And then the courage, what he said is, the most important thing that I've been talking about since the beginning of doing this podcast, having confidence in yourself, right? He says confidence comes from within. I mean, courage comes from within when you know that you have it. And the guy's like, but I want something. See, they all need to be validated. And I think that's what happens with all of us. We all want to be validated for our gifts and traits and characteristics, right? But the thing is this, and that's great. No one's saying it's okay to get accolades for the things that you do well. I'm not saying you shouldn't, because I'm an actor. Of course we want accolades. But at the end of the day, you have to truly own all that stuff. You have to have the confidence in your gifts and talents and traits and characteristics and celebrate them yourself, because you can have all these wonderful gifts, but if you don't believe in it, what happens? And though a lot of people throw accolades, what happens down the road, you'll always feel like a sham. You won't find that true inner peace or true inner calm, because you feel like you're perpetrating a fraud, that it's like, well, I don't believe in any of this crap that I'm spewing and that who I am, because I don't believe in it inherently. So what I want to encourage you to think about is, what are you confident in about yourself? Think about all the wonderful gifts you have. And when I say gifts, trust me, I'm not talking about, you could be a physicist and that's fantastic, but we're not talking about someone who's doing this and that and everything. I'm talking about your gifts are being compassionate, empathetic. It could be also being somebody who draws, who paints, who sings, who acts, who's a musician. I don't know, but the gift of just being a great friend is a friggin' gift. Not everybody is a great friend, or someone who's a great listener, or someone who knows when to say the right thing at the right time, or someone who's a great mediator. These are gifts and traits and characteristics that should be celebrated, because a lot of people are walking around with supposedly all these wonderful things on the external, but on the internal, they're a friggin' shell. And you know what it is? Because they don't have confidence in themselves and they don't love themselves. And I think that's important for us. And to gain that confidence and love in ourselves is to celebrate all the wonderful things that we have already. And we've talked about that too. So I'm just going to end it on that. I think it's important for us to have this wonderful experience, the journey called life, because each day is a gift, and getting older is not a curse. It's a beautiful thing, because what's the alternative, right? Especially now. Let's be grateful for that. Also, just standing in your truth of who you are, finding the beauty of who you are, standing in your confidence, finding that self-love, and knowing that you're enough and worthy. And lastly, step out of a situation if something's not going right and see it from a different pair of eyes, and be objective from it. You know what I mean? Don't see it from your perspective only. Stand outside of yourself, change the lens, and see if you can see the truth of the situation or the truth of the person, or even look in the mirror and see the truth of yourself. And then what can happen? You can then determine what you need to do in that particular situation. Okay, my friends. Lot going on, so I'm glad it's all come to light, all the green lights, all that's green doesn't, is not reality, right? I told you the glasses were a friggin' sham. I knew the glasses were a sham, the rose tinted glasses. Same thing with the green glasses. Anyway, my friends, hoping you have a most blissful, blessed, wonderful day. And I'm sending you so much love, light, peace, joy, and bliss, and pure joy. And just the fact that, you know what? You've come here to be you. You are unique. You put the you in unique. Hello, what does unique start with? A you. I know it's punny and it's stupid, but I don't care. But you know what? If you're here for that, you got a little bit of that. Anyway, sending you the best, wishing you the best, and until we read again. You like that?